The Biden administration's getting grilled over the double standard that everybody knows exists. Donald Trump's being prosecuted. January 6ers are being prosecuted. Many other people are being investigated and castigated by the FBI and the intelligence agencies. But Hunter Biden goes free. He's got an entire laptop of debauchery. He's got tons of evidence documented of criminality. But nothing goes bad for him. He's the president's son. Daddy fixes everything. And so the media is wondering about this plea deal. And we also have questions now that this whistleblower has come out, who is highly credible, who worked at the IRS, specifically on the Hunter Biden investigation. And he's saying that what Merrick Garland and the Biden administration are telling us is not true. It's dishonest. And so the media, to their credit, is asking questions about this. And John Kirby, you can see his contorted face here, didn't want to answer any of the questions, literally just left.
The House Ways and Means Committee yesterday released documents, their authenticity nowhere challenged. That included a July 2017 WhatsApp message sent by Hunter Biden to Henry Zhao, a Chinese Communist Party official, which stated in its entirety, and I quote, "I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And Z, if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows, and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my direction. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father," unquote. So just a couple of questions about this. First, does this not undermine the president's claim during the 2020 campaign and the reaffirmations of that claim by his two press secretaries since then, that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with him?
No, and I'm not going to comment further on this. I'm not. James, let me save you some. Let me save you some breath. If you're going to ask about this, I am not addressing. I know you do more than I'd like you to have. I am not going to address this issue from this podium. I'm just not going to do it.
All right.
I'm not going to do
Where
it.
was the precedent on it?
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Oh, John. It's an important question, John. And we've got a lot of answers that we'd like to hear from you. But he just bails because that's basically what they do. Probably wasn't expecting to get that answer. And now Karine is next on deck. So if John doesn't want to answer it, well, how about Karine?
The president invited his son Hunter to the state dinner last night. I'm wondering if you could take us into the thinking and decision-making of why
the reason. Why would you do that?
I'm just not going to get into family discussion, personal family discussion.
It's
As
not.
you
It's
know,
the State
Hunter's
Department.
his son. I'm just not going to get into
It's
it.
the state. It's the state
If
dinner.
Hunter Biden wasn't the president's son, would he have invited someone who had just reached a plea agreement with federal prosecutors
Well,
2 days earlier?
a couple of things.
Great question.
Again, that's his son. He's a family member.
But
It
it's a
is
state
not
dinner.
uncommon for family members to attend events at the White House. You
With-
could look
with
at past presidents.
federal
I'm
charges?
sure you have. So that is not uncommon.
Did they
As
just
it
take
relates
plea
to
deals?
anything related to Hunter, I'm just not going to respond to it from here.
Okay. Well, he was at the State
Can I
Department.
follow up on that?
Okay.
No, I just called in somebody. Go ahead.
So Kirby wouldn't answer James's question, though. Are you going to answer the question? I mean, it's not a reasonable question to ask whether the President of the United States was involved, as this message seems to suggest, in some sort of a coercive conversation for business dealings by his son. Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us.
So here's the thing, and I appreciate the question. I believe my colleague at the White House Counsel has answered this question
There it
already,
is.
has
We're
dealt
waiting
with
for that
this, has made it very clear. I just don't have anything to share outside of what my colleagues have shared, and so I would refer you to him and the DOJ. Just not going to comment from here.
Text message.
What I can tell you is I know that my colleague has dealt with this. He addressed this at the White House
Not
Counsel.
really.
I just don't have anything else to share.
In the shakedown
I just answered the question. I just answered the question.
No, you didn't. Yes or no? Was the president involved in the
I just
shakedown attempt?
Stephen, I just answered the question. It's not up to you how I answer the question. I just answered the question by telling you my colleagues at the White House Counsel has dealt with this, and I would refer you to them. Go ahead.
Can you just remind us what your colleague said from the White House Counsel?
Yeah, remind us,
we
please.
have it.
I would refer you to them, and they will share their statement with all of
My
you.
question is about your statements from that podium. You stated that the president stands by his comment from the 2020 campaign that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with his son. And you stood at that podium and you reaffirmed that. Do you stand by your reaffirmation?
What I will say is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And I will leave it there. Anything else, I will refer you to the White House counsel.
This is not a change?
I just answered the question. You just asked me, does my statement change? I just told you nothing has changed. That's answering the question. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The
Go
president
ahead.
was there 2 days
Go ahead,
prior.
Stephen. I'm calling on your colleague right now. Go ahead.
Thank
Quiet,
you.
Stephen.
To follow up on my colleague, is there anything that you can say with
Anything at all?
regard
Like-
to this text message and what the president's son was alleging? Was the president there or not?
I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House counsel. They have addressed this. and I
There
would
it is
refer you to
again.
them. Go ahead.
Karine, have you spoken to the president about this? Have you asked him whether he was there with his son on July 30th?
This is not a conversation that I've had with the president. Again, I would refer you to the White House
Do
counsel.
you plan to have that conversation with the president?
No.
No.
Did the president speak with the attorney general at all
I
last
can't,
night? State dinner?
I cannot say if the president had had a conversation with the attorney general last night. What I can refer you to is the White House counsel's office as it relates to the
Merrick Garland was at that dinner.
allegations. They've already addressed this. This is something for them to deal with. I refer you to the Department of Justice on anything else if you don't want to speak to the White House counsel's office.
And there was reporting earlier in the week that after the plea agreement was reached by Hunter Biden, that the president felt relieved that that part of it was behind him. Is that true? Can you
I
speak
can't
to his
speak to that.
mindset?
I cannot speak to the president's mindset. Again, I would refer you to the White House counsel's office.
White House counsel's office, going to be a very common phrase there in the press briefing room because, man, she does not want to answer those questions. But there were some other rumors that Joe Biden apparently maybe lawyered up. And every morning during the weeks, we like to check in with the presidential schedule on our member-only stream and see what he has in store for us, what he's actually up to. And today we saw that he was back in town from a weekend at Camp David. And Marjorie Taylor Greene and Rep. Darrell Issa, they communicated the following on Twitter. They said, Joe Biden has lawyered up. Now, we don't know if he was down there meeting with his lawyers or not, but this is what she said. Says Burisma owner and Ukrainian oligarch who paid Joe $5 million said it would take 10 years to find Joe Biden's web of criminality. He underestimated the oversight Republicans. It took us 6 months, she says, impeach Joe Biden. And she wasn't alone on this. Representative Darrell Issa said the same thing, said on Twitter that he thinks that Joe Biden has lawyered up. That's what they were doing in Camp David. But Joe Biden was giving a speech about American internet or something, high-speed internet access. And on his way out, he got asked about this scandal. A reporter said, did you lie when you told us you didn't have any deals with your son? You didn't engage in these foreign businesses with him? Okay, so shout out to this journo here. She asks him, did you lie about Hunter? And then he says, no. He shouts it. And then she says, anything about Hunter? And then he walks on out of there. So that's the president saying no. Well, we're not so sure about that. I think the answer is yes. I think you did lie there, Joe. Now, of course, we've got the Democrats who are doing cover up and reacting to try to paper over this whole deal. One woman we'll check in is Senator Amy Klobuchar, who says Joe Biden's a heroic man. He's brought a lot of jobs back, and so that's why we shouldn't care about his corrupt DOJ.
Dinner, do you think it was appropriate for Hunter Biden to be at the same event as the Attorney General Merrick Garland was in the same week he accepted a plea deal?
I think as the president explains, that's his son. That's a separate thing. And I would like to say about that decision was made by an independent prosecutor who was a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who had 10 years of experience, well-respected. Philadelphia Inquirer reported that he was a registered Republican. He looked at the facts and evidence and made that decision. And
now, we're going to come back to that because that's not what the IRS whistleblower says. The IRS whistleblower says the opposite, actually. Says, I was a part of the investigative team. And by the way, it's not just one IRS whistleblower. It's two. And one of them is a gay man. And he told us that in his opening statement. And so it is baffling to me that Democrats would be so bigoted that they would be denying the truth of a gay man who works for the IRS. It's unbelievable. So he is explaining to us, these two whistleblowers that no, they were on the Hunter Biden literal investigation team. They wanted and sat in meetings discussing options to bring criminal charges in California, in D.C. They brought it to David Weiss, but he told them, no, I don't have that authority. He went to Matthew Graves, who was the U.S. attorney in D.C. Matthew Graves said no. He went to the new attorney, who just got appointed by Joe Biden, said no in California. And we know that other people, not even David Weiss, like Leslie Wolf, were tipping off Hunter Biden's lawyers before the IRS and the FBI were going to conduct overt surveillance and go into storage facilities. But they always default to this Trump-appointed Republican David Weiss. The whole thing's a joke. It's a scam to divert your attention away from the truth. It means nothing. The reason they kept him on the case was because he was somebody that they could control. And we've also got other reports from the whistleblowers that people in Delaware, the reason why they wanted to keep this whole thing in Delaware is because Joe Biden owns Delaware. He's been there for 40 years, and he can keep good tabs and good control on the various mechanics that happen. Let's remember all of that when she comes and tells us this whole thing is done above board.
By the way, if that's what the Republicans want to run on in the coming election, good luck, because the president is going to be able to run on the strength of his work in bringing 13 million jobs back to America, in resurging manufacturing in our country, and in moving forward.
You understand the perception issue of something like that, though?
I do.
You do?
And do you wish that perception were different?
Awkward.
You always wish there were different perceptions, but that's not reality. Reality is whether or not someone is going to be able to get their insulin, and the president has made changes. Reality is whether someone has a job. Reality is when they can go visit their grandma again in an assisted living.
You kept grandmas locked down and get their insulin. What the heck are we talking about? We're talking about the Justice Department here, and about corruption permeating the DOJ, the FBI, and the entire Biden White House to cover up their crimes. Kind of important.
Those are people's realities, not who is sitting where at a state dinner.
Well, it's more than that there, Amy. It is bad perception. If you actually loved your son, then you would understand Joe Biden's predicament. He's a good father, man. And his criminal son that he was involved in the criminality, showing up to meetings, getting 10% held in trust for the big guy, all of the things. It's just father-son love, man. It's like going fishing. It's like going hiking, except this is fishing in Burisma, Ukraine.
The Hunter Biden story, the scandal, the this, the that, it's also the story of a father's love. And Joe Biden has never and will never give up on his son Hunter, and will never treat him lesser than. And so he is a father first. Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it, all right? It doesn't matter what type of criminality they do. It doesn't matter if it's 100% held for the big guy. It doesn't matter if it's $1 billion a month on Burisma or whatever. It's a father's love for his troubled son. Did you hear that little hiccup there? All right. Well, I wonder if she would apply that same standard to Donald Trump or anything like that. But of course, Trump's kids haven't committed various felonies on multiple continents. So the question is, to Karine, now that they're all inviting Hunter to state dinners, now that he's got this sweetheart plea deal, he's hanging out with Merrick Garland and prime ministers, he's flying around on Air Force One, he's got the whole DOJ in his pocket. One little minor question for all of us is, has Hunter Biden stopped his criminality? We know that he had all sorts of business deals with China and various nefarious entities around this entire globe, and was threatening Chinese businessmen, saying, give us the money or else my dad's going to do this. A lot of bad things. We saw a lot of the photographs on that laptop, and boy, it's a mess. But the question is, has he stopped? Has anybody actually turned the water off? Karine, has a memo gone out to tell him to stop wrecking America and raping the Treasury?
Not unusual for presidents to invite members of their family to official White House functions, like the state dinner last week. I'm curious, though, in light of some of the recent legal controversy, if the president communicated to members of his family not to conduct business on White House grounds. Can you tell us about any kinds of guardrails that are up?
So look, I'm going to be, again, very mindful because this is all connected.
Stuff I don't want to talk about.
A case that the DOJ is currently overseeing, so I'm not going to comment on that specifically, but as you know, and we have laid out very early.
You can't tell us if he's like still committing crimes or not?
Early on in this administration, when it comes to ethics, when it comes to how we all kind of move about and how we respect clearly the government ethics here. This is an administration that has been incredibly transparent on that and has put some strict rules. And so I can speak to that. I can speak to how the president has moved forward in making sure that the people.
We have rules like federal federal tax laws and federal gun laws and stuff like that we don't break anymore. I mean, Hunter did for a while, but not anymore, though.
Who work for him and himself are held to kind of a strict course of action, but I'm not going to speak to anything that's related to the case. I'm going to
think about guardrails for the president's family.
I'm just not going to speak to anything that's related to this
Do
case.
any guardrails exist?
I'm not going to speak to anything
Like John
that is
Kirby.
related to this case.
Bye.
As you stated, we've had, when it comes to ethics, we take that very, very seriously
Yes,
here in
we
this
know.
administration. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, we know. Yes, they take it very seriously. So John Kirby doesn't like the questions. Karine doesn't like the questions. They're just now deferring everything over to the White House counsel's office. But I'm not sure that's going to fly. As Pandora's box for them continues to open and more evidence comes out, the Biden crime family will continue to be exposed and the facade will crumble down.